Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Luke Deckard Show. I'm your host, Luke Deckard. And with me tonight, I have thriller writer Sam Holland. Welcome,
Hello.
Sam.
Hello.
Welcome. Thrilled to have you on. We've chatted a long time ago about pinning a date to have you come and chat with
Yeah.
with me about stuff, and I'm glad we got it in before the baby arrived, because literally any second now
Yeah.
I could hear the call, hear the shouts, and life is going to get very, very, very different
Oh, yeah.
very soon.
I'll keep quiet about that. I'll let you discover the joy for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've done all of the stuff, so we've done all of the classes, all the stuff, so we sort of know what it's going to be like, and I have nieces and well, I have a niece and well, I don't have nieces and nephews because we are married, and both of our siblings have a niece and a nephew, or a son and a daughter. What the heck am I talking about? So I kind of know. I have an idea of how it's going to change, but you know what? It's going to be very different when it's you,
When it's yours, you have to
isn't
make
it?
decisions. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for coming on. I'm glad we could bring you on. So tonight we're gonna chat David Fincher films on this episode of Writers On. So for anyone just tuning in for the first time, or you don't know what this kind of particular episodes are about. This is where I bring on a writer and we dissect something, whether from it's a film or a TV show, and talk about its pros and its cons, and what we like about it. But this is all from a writer's perspective. So not just random schmoes, people who are actual writers talking about the craft of writing and why they like or dislike certain things. And you've chosen 3 David Fincher films, Sam. Um, but before we get into that, let's learn a little bit about you. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? Who you are as a writer, what you've written so far, and that kind of stuff.
Okay. So my name is Sam Holland, as you said. I am the author of one book that is out called The Echo Man, which looks like this. Well, that's the UK version anyway. And The Echo Man is basically a lovely, gory serial killer novel. And then there's my second novel, which is called The 20, which looks like sorry, I'm doing the blatant self promotion thing, but I have to. That's the UK cover, that is the US cover,
Nice.
which is out in the next couple of weeks. And I won't go into the long spiel about the 20 yet. I might do in a minute. But yeah, so I'm the author of those 2 novels, which are more serial killer novels. And then I also write under another name called Louisa Scar. And they are police procedurals, so following 2 detectives called Butler and West, and they are out in the UK as well. So they begin with Last Place You Look, Under a Dark Cloud, if I can get the titles right, Blink of an Eye. What's the 4th one? Seen to Be Believed, and then the 5th and final of that series is called Out of the Ashes, and that's in July. But yeah,
Wonderful.
but I'm mainly here to talk about my serial killer persona, I guess, which is Sam Holland, which is the more relevant one today because the 20 is out in 3 weeks today in the UK. So yeah.
There we go. Not long. It's interesting. Why the because you have your police procedural name and then you've got your serial killer name.
Yeah.
What's the reason for 2 names? Is
For
it
the
2
double identity.
different
Um
brands?
Yeah, it's the difference in tone, I think, of the books.
Yeah.
So the Sam Holland ones tend to be a bit more violent, a bit more. I
Mm,
deliberately wrote when I wrote The Echo Man, I deliberately wrote it as a sort of no holds barred sort of book. So the
mhm.
language is whatever language I wanted to use. The violence is more graphic and shown.
Yes.
And generally it's about serial killers. And then, so the reason I have 2 publishers is when we went out on submission for The Echo Man,
Mhm.
my second publisher, Canelo, were also interested, and eventually we went to HarperCollins.
Yeah.
But we said to Canelo, "We'd love to work with you. Would you like another series?" So we pitched this
Oh,
5-book
cool.
Butler and West series, and they were looking for a sort of a double-handed detective thing. So we got a deal for that at the same time. So they've both sort of run at the same time. But the Butler and
Nice.
West ones are a little bit more. They're not quite so graphic.
Right.
The violent stuff happens a little bit more off screen, and it's more about the police side, the interaction between the two detectives and their lives, and so it's just different tone of book, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally get that. And also, what a bit about your background? So you studied psychology at university.
Yeah.
How does that kind of factor into your writing?
I didn't, unfortunately, when I was at uni, I didn't do anything of the interesting stuff that I would have loved to do. So I didn't do any criminology. I didn't do any of that. We did a little bit of abnormal psychology, but nothing,
Yeah.
nothing too interesting, unfortunately. What it did teach me is how interested I am in that side of things, in how people think and why they do what they do. And it means that when I come to do the research now, I'm pretty quick at digesting scientific papers. So if I want to know information out of them, I can pretty much distill it without reading a 22 dry scientific, I can pretty much pull the bits I want out very quickly. So I guess I have the right sort of mind now for that sort of scientific dissection of a story and of a person. But yes, sadly, my degree wasn't the fun stuff. It was all the, things I wasn't quite so interested in.
Well, what kicked off your interest in serial killers then?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me that, and I really wish I could pinpoint it, but I've always just, even from when I was very little, I think I was fascinated in the darker stories. So I read a lot of Stephen King, James Herbert, at an age when you should not be reading Stephen King and James Herbert, I was reading them, and I just loved it. And I was really interested in pathology, the human body. I think I went through wanting to do various careers in that respect. I wanted to be a pathologist for a while, wanted to be a forensic scientist for a while, wanted to be a police officer for a while. I was basically too lazy to do any of those things. So I've just always been fascinated, and writing books is a wonderful combination for me of being able to explore other things that I'm really interested in and do like research into the stuff I love, but be a writer and write books, which is the other side of the things I'm passionate about.
Yeah. So because it's interesting with your Sam Holland persona, and the films that you've chosen are very very graphic, intense thrillers, with lots of blood and cussing, and definitely sort of fit with your two books, that we have.
Yeah.
Apart from obviously the films that we're probably going to talk about, or maybe it is these here, what in terms of cinema, like what are the films that inspire you the most, or sort of help influence you when you are thinking about stories and writing scenes?
Two of my most favorite films are very different from the ones we're going to talk about today. So my two favorite films are The Big Chill, and I can't remember what year it came out. It's Lawrence Kasdan. It's from absolutely years ago. So a young Kevin Kline, young William Hurt, young Jeff Goldblum. I'm trying to remember all of the. Is it Glenn Close? Can't remember now. But and the thing that I loved about that, and that was revolving around basically a whole lot of university friends getting together, because one of their other friends has killed themselves in their outhouse, basically in their spare holiday house, whatever the Americans have, I can't remember. And I love how they've got all these like very heightened emotions and things that are going on, but essentially it's a friendship movie, so it's about all the relationships between these people, and I loved that interaction and that sort of way they all get on or don't get on. Some are married, some have settled down, some aren't, and I sort of love that, coupled with the suicide element, which sort of heightens all their emotions that for that one weekend, which we focus on. And then my second favorite probably is Grosse Point Blank, which is the John Cusack Minnie Driver film. And I just love how it takes something very serious a very serious subject. He's a paid assassin, essentially. He's an
Mm,
assassin, and make it very, very funny and very irreverent. Oh,
irreverent. That's
thank
the
you.
word,
That's the
maybe.
word. I can spell it. I can't write it, so I can't say it. But yeah, so that it sort of turns it on its head and makes it
Yeah.
really funny film. And he, all the way through, he's joking about being an assassin, and people are just like responding to that in a very flat way.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful movie. I mean, it's just gone John Cusack being John Cusack, but fabulous film. Have you seen
Yeah.
it?
I haven't seen that one. No.
Oh no, you must. It's brilliant.
I will put it on the list. It's so hard sometimes, isn't it? Because there's so many films out there, and there's, it's difficult. It's like, I want to see them all, but I can't. But no, I have an ever growing list of films and TV shows, and
Yeah. Well, it's quite short. I think it's less than 2 hours.
I mean that is a win. That
Yeah.
will probably knock it up further on the list, because I it's funny because I think all three of the films we chose for tonight, I think they were all pretty long.
Yeah.
I think Se7en might have been the shortest. I think Se7en is like 2 hours.
Yeah, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I watched last night, actually. Again,
Yeah.
I've watched it before, and that's 2:20, I think.
Yeah. Fight Club is also 220. Well,
Yeah.
219 to be exact.
Okay.
But at least my copy was. That's the other thing that's always weird to me sometimes. You put in a film and it, like, certain copies will be slightly different on the time. Because of various reasons that are beyond me.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, okay. Well, let's dive in. Let's dive into to Fincher. So when you were thinking of a topic, what was it that you were like, I want to talk about David Fincher and I want to talk about these three movies?
It's the serial killer element. I mean, it's
Mm,
before I started writing Echo Man, I knew I wanted to write something that was a little bit different and that was a little bit darker. So things I'd written before that, I'd always felt an element of sort of holding back, and I didn't want to with the Echo Man. And I watched Seven
mm,
around that time,
mhm.
and Seven, I think it's one of the ultimate serial killer films, I
Yeah,
think. It
yeah,
does everything perfectly,
yeah.
like from the setup to the all the way through to the ending, which isn't what you expect, but is
No,
perfect.
yeah,
I think it's just the ultimate to the relationships between, how they start out between Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, Mills and Somerset, and
yeah.
then how the, wife, I can't even remember her name, which is
Tracy Mills.
Tracy, that's it. How Tracy sort of changes that relationship and how it all goes, and then, of course, Kevin Spacey is just brilliant.
He's good
So
at playing creeps.
well,
He's
yeah,
got a lot of
anyway.
experience.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Um, so I guess when I started writing The Echo Man, and I think we call it an homage now, but there's
Yeah.
definite elements in Echo Man, which I realize now watching Seven again,
Mm,
how much I homaged or blatantly stole
yes.
from the Seven, from Seven. So, from aspects like I love how it's always raining.
Mm,
It's always raining, always miserable and dark and horrible, and I loved that.
yeah.
To the aspects when they find the serial killer's house,
Mm.
I blatantly nicked that. Um, which, I don't homage. It pays homage to Seven.
It's homage, yeah. It's, imitation is the what, best form of flattery or something
Well,
like
there
that.
you go.
What's
I'm
that
definitely
phrase? Yeah.
quoting
Mm,
Fincher. But what I didn't realize is when I don't know, I can't remember who pointed it out to me, but
mm,
that all these films were David Fincher. And then as soon as and then you join like Zodiac and Mindhunter into that as well, you
yes.
suddenly start going, "Oh, okay, yeah, I see it now."
Yeah, yeah. There's a unique, definitely a unique tone to all of his films. And even a particular like cinematic style, like the color grading and even the film grading. There's they're very they're all quite dark. They all
Mm,
sort of look greenish and yellowish, um,
yes.
which and it goes throughout them all. I think Girl with a Dragon Tattoo is it definitely retains the darkness, but maybe is less green and yellowy, but does retain that everything's quite bleak. All of his stuff is
Yeah.
bleak.
I mean, even if you look at so Gone Girl, I hadn't watched until very recently, and again, that's one of his, and ridiculously long.
Yes.
And even that's got like a lot of the flashbacks are all like sepia toned. This again, what you said about this green sort of tone.
Yeah.
Gone Girl is exactly the same. And of course, we all know how bleak that one is.
Yes, we do. I gotta be honest, Gone Girl is not my favorite. Um, I actually wrote a note that it's not as witty as I thought, but I was like, by the time Gone Girl comes along, I'm gone with David Fincher. Um, because I just
I enjoyed it, but yeah, it's not my favorite.
no, no, I just couldn't connect with that film. I couldn't connect with it. It was, and I guess the thing is, it's not necessarily David Fincher's fault. I
Well,
actually think it's more the story that I don't connect with. I'm like the
yeah, it
crime
is.
writer brain in me is like she's left way too many clues. This is way too obvious. Like, come on. I don't mind suspending disbelief, but like try just a little bit harder.
I mean, they're very faithful in the book to the book, I think, and in a way, I think it's something that works better. You know, some films work better as a book and some don't,
Yeah.
and I think maybe this is one that I don't know, should have stayed as a book.
Possibly.
Poss
Maybe
Anyway, let's talk about the ones we love.
but yeah. So Se7en. Yeah, it's a fun premise, and it's a premise that is now cliche. The evoking the biblical sins and or biblical killings, which does have a tie-in with Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. There's biblical elements in there, and so it's what's interesting to me is how you have that sort of theme, and some stories will take that and it's kind of milked and isn't well thought out, but when they are like these two films, it's absolutely I in my opinion I think it's terrific. um but yeah, what's your thought on the way he is using these seven deadly sins to orchestrate the serial killings?
I mean, I one thing I really love about it is the way the killings represent the seven deadly sins so perfectly,
Mm,
but also how the detectives move from one to the other.
mm,
So how much they are led around by their nose from one scene to the next scene. So I mean, I think we're assuming that everyone's read it by this point. But
yeah,
sorry,
spoiler for all of
watched
these films, people.
yeah, let's not worry about spoilers, but you've got the drawing of blood on the eyes, and
Yeah,
then that leads you to the wife, who leads you to the picture, who leads you to the hand,
yeah,
and then that goes to the drug dealer in the bedroom, who is Sloth?
I believe
No.
so. Yes, I
Yes.
think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just so wonderfully pulled around. The only tenuous thing I think is about the books and the FBI bit. You know, that they get
Mm.
the guy from the FBI to run this thing, and conveniently, it's the only guy that's taken that out from the library. And you think, really, couldn't he have got the books from? I mean, it wouldn't work nowadays. but,
No, no, no,
but
not at
that's
all.
the only thing that I think is a little bit too easy how they find that the house.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, the rest of it's perfect. And then when he turns up in the hall of the
Yes.
station,
Yeah.
and then when they go from there, yeah, it's just brilliant. But I
Yeah.
remember I'm just looking up because of my notes because it was a while ago. So they had a few original. He had a few different endings for that, which I found quite fascinating.
Mhm.
That it wasn't because obviously in the film Mills shoots the killer, which of course is Wrath, and it all pulls it together, wonderfully. But I think in originally the original ending just had gunshots, and you don't know what happened. Or there is another ending where Somerset shoots him, and then Mills has to take Somerset's place as a cop, which I just thought, it's not as perfect.
No,
it's more uplifting, sort of.
Yeah.
But it's not as perfect.
No, because I think what works so nicely with Mills and Somerset is they're really like at polar opposites when they meet. And Mills is very, he's come to the big scary city to make a difference. He's dead set and believes that he can do good.
Cocky,
and Mills,
confident.
yeah, and then Somerset is like, good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen. And like, what I quite like is there's that one scene really early on when Somerset says, he's talking about like when a woman is attacked and they say, don't scream for help because no one will come, and I think that really perfectly sets up the world we're about to explore. Right?
Where is it set? Is it New York?
They never say. It's an ambiguous big city. But yeah, they don't say which one it is. But I love that though. It's all sort of like, okay, this is the world we live in where you can scream for help and no one is going to help you. But Mills is just, he definitely wants to be that hero. And yeah, so what do you think about their relationship and how that evolves over the course of the film?
I mean, Mills has got the perfect character arc, hasn't he? So he starts off as this, like, as you say, like cocky, confident, blah, blah, blah. And then over the course of the movie, he just gradually goes down and down and down and down and down and down. And sort of anger and this fury towards this guy sort of starts to take over by the point that you get to the very end, when of course it all happens. But I think the relationship's nice because he's sort of a father figure, I think, to both Tracy and to Mills. So Tracy, especially, obviously, she confides that she's pregnant, but also Mills, because he's sort of been taken under his wing and softly guided towards, read this book, and maybe go here and come here and don't bash down the door, and that sort of thing. And it's it's a lovely. I'm not sure what Somerset gets from Mills, really.
It's true. I wonder if it's just his sort of. I wonder if he just finds it not quaint, but endearing, maybe, that this guy actually is sincere about his desire to do good.
Do you think he can see something in him about his own, how he started out, or do you think he's just interested in him?
I think it might be more interest and maybe concern. I think, actually, thinking about it, I also wonder if it's concern, because he's like, don't put this kid on the case. He's not ready. And maybe that's it. Maybe maybe because he recognizes that Mills is not ready. He's willing to sort of hang around and go through it with him to sort of maybe hold his hand a little bit, but that just goes terribly, terribly wrong. The defining moment, though, I think, in their relationship is Tracy, Gwyneth Paltrow's character, inviting Somerset to dinner. Which I loved. I don't know. What do you think about that scene? I quite love that scene.
I quite like the bit when she says, David, I can't even remember his first name. What's Somerset's first name?
Crap. Now I can't remember.
You see,
I've got it written down.
No, I know. When they introduce him, she says, very slightly patronizing, David, this is so-and-so, says, this is David. And then tries to get them to like relate to each other on a personal level. And like she phones up and invites him to dinner. And because she's trying to, get some humanity out of them, I guess, rather than just being these blokes that catch bad guys.
Yes, William,
that's right. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, William and David. William and David.
Yes.
Um,
So she's definitely a catalyst in them starting to like get on, I guess, and seeing, and the way he sort of laughs at when the train goes across and
yeah.
everything clatters. And I think we as a viewer see the human side of William, um,
Yes.
that we haven't maybe seen before. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He definitely is. Yeah, he's kind of a closed book at the beginning, and then by the end, we've flipped through more of the pages of his life, including, I mean, that the scene between Somerset and Tracy, when she tells him that she's pregnant, and he
Mhm.
talks about the girl that he loved who was pregnant, and the lengths he went to sort of, like, break her down and make her get, just get rid of the baby, is quite, it was like, wow, you don't really expect this character to have done something like that.
Mm,
But then you sort of see that this seediness, this disillusionment, this just bleakness is just saturated into every aspect of everybody's life here.
mm.
And I love the way the film does that.
Yeah, it is perfectly done. I mean, I was yeah. So one, and also how they're different. So how Somerset's the thinker and Mills is the action man.
Yeah.
They've got that again, that sort of dichotomy between them. But yeah, no, and in the first 5 minutes, that as well. It's a
Yeah.
perfect setup. You know who they are in the first 5 minutes. There's
Yes.
no fucking around. We know
No.
who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, in terms of pacing and understanding characters, you don't, this is a, if you're trying to learn uh how to introduce characters and get their character across quickly, just watch the opening of this movie, because it definitely nails it
Yeah.
quickly. I love it.
But also
Um,
in character as well. When you look at,
yeah.
the Kevin Spacey,
Mm,
character, there's a beautiful line at the end where they say something about a dead dog, being in the road, and he says, "I didn't do that." You know, he so he's
yeah.
got some you learn that he's not insane. He's got some morals. He's got some line that he'll take credit for chopping a woman's head off and sticking it in a box, but he won't take credit for the for the dead dog. So
Yes, yes, that's interesting. Oh, we have one person in the chat saying hello, hello Biffer, Biffer the Hobbit saying hello. If you've seen the film, Biffer, let us know what you think about it, of Seven. It's interesting that about Kevin Spacey, well, his character rather, um, because it kind of ties in with that idea that we are as readers and watchers of films and stuff. We don't mind when there is a human being brutally mutilated,
no.
um but
Yes.
if it's a dog,
Oh my
cat,
goodness.
then it's just the worst thing in the world.
I get so
um
much. I mean, a I don't do it, so to speak. It's not shown live, but there's like a mention of a skinned cat in the Echo Man.
mm.
And people were saying, trigger warning for animal cruelty. And for a while I was like, I do not. And then I was, oh, okay, yes, I do.
Although I have to say, anyone who complains about a trigger warning, I'm like, you did pick up a book about a serial killer.
Well, this is the trigger warning for Echo Man is ridiculous. It's about a paragraph and it's every single trigger warning you could possibly imagine. So it's like, it is a bit like, come on, it's a book about a serial killer copying serial killers of the past. It's not like I'm not hiding it here. It's pretty graphic. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
there's everything. But I mean, my editor was in the 20, I was going to kill a dog.
yeah.
And my editor said, look, you can kill, 35 people in the Echo Man and 20 in the 20, but if you kill that dog, be prepared for the fallout that you're gonna get. And I was like, okay, it doesn't die, whatever.
True, but what about John Wick? I mean, the whole franchise hinges on his dog being killed.
But I guess it's his reaction to that makes it
Yeah,
okay,
I
because
guess
he's avenging the dog.
he's avenging the dog. The dog is symbolic of other things, but yeah. Wait, so were you saying that there is a trigger warning in your book? I don't remember.
No, we don't include them. But when
Oh,
reviewers, people on
okay.
NetGalley. Oh
Okay.
no, God, no, we haven't
I
put
was
them
gonna
in.
say, I was like, I do not, because I have it here, and I was like, I do not remember seeing that, because I would have brought
No,
that up already.
no, but
Yes.
it's when people review it, and people on NetGalley and the reviewers on NetGalley, they often include like trigger warning. This book includes, and
Trigger
then it
warning: this book about a serial killer might trigger
includes
you.
everything, everything under the sun. But anyway, I'm not going to go through them now.
No, 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 no. Trigger warnings drive me nuts. That's a topic for another day.
Yeah,
That's
let's
a
talk about
topic for
trigger warnings
another
another
day.
time. Anyway,
Anywho,
I don't kill the dog. Let's just
you
say.
don't kill a dog. Yeah, no, I think the other thing was quite is fun about Se7en, and we'll wrap up Se7en here in a second, but it's also a really slow burn. I think it's 47 minutes before, and we only have kind of 2 murders and a possible clue for a killer at that point. Because it's only a 2-hour movie, so we're close to the halfway point, and a lot has happened. There's a lot of kind of detective work, going from place to
Mm,
place, observing some crime scenes, and some, I mean, albeit some very graphic and gross crime scenes.
yeah.
But the other thing that's fun about it is what are your thoughts on the actual detective work and the laying of the clues? I thought some of them were just, I love the way they're sort of laid out, and how they end up being picked up on by some of these people.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I mean, you say about pacing, but also the first kill,
Mm,
gluttony, comes
mm,
very fast, very quickly
yeah,
along.
yeah,
Like that's in, I can't remember, but it's very like early on. It's
yeah.
pretty much the first 10 minutes, must be.
I think
Um,
so. Yeah.
yeah, but some of them, I think the killer was lucky that they picked up some of the clues so quickly. For example, the shavings on the
The
lino that
shavings. Yep.
pulled the fridge out. Like, I mean, either that could have just been dismissed by a pathologist, or it could have never been, considered significant. Or yeah, so the killer was incredibly lucky that he had two very astute detectives on the case. Equally,
Yes,
that the wife picked up on the artwork being upside down, because she's shown a black and white photo. She might not have picked up
that's
on
true.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's very convenient, but wonderfully done, wonderfully done.
Yeah.
I
I think it works just enough. It never pulled me out of the story. Which I think, for me at least, that was a sign of a job, well done. Unlike, say, not Girl Dragon, Gone Girl. Um
yeah.
Right. So this worked for me for the most part, but I do see your point. But I think, I wonder if this is because they are really trying to keep it in terms of time. Again, this is, you know mid '90s. Films are really kept to a shorter time,
Mm.
run time, back in those days, back in the glory days of the '90s. So I wonder if that's also part of it. I feel like if this was made today, it would probably easily be a 2.5, 3 hour movie, if not a 10-part mini series on some streaming service, where it's the distilling this stuff is very is slowly done, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but I don't know. I love this film. Biffer in the chat says, he says, I know the game is not a movie of topic today, but I'm praying we talk about it. Um, I've yet to see the game. I haven't had a chance to watch it. It's another Fincher movie.
I've never even heard of it. I'm Googling it now.
Yeah, yeah, it's one that's on my list to watch. I've just, like I was saying earlier, there's so many things to watch and keep on top of, and this one I haven't gotten to yet. But
Oh,
yes,
okay.
it's within our wheelhouse. It seems like it's something we should have seen, but haven't
Yeah,
seen
it
yet.
does. Looking at it, it does feel like something I should have seen, but no, never seen it. It's on Netflix, so maybe I will.
Oh, is it? Okay, well, there we
Yeah,
go. We can,
put into this.
watch it on Netflix at some point. But yeah, sorry, Biffer, I can't talk about it. We can't talk about it tonight.
Neither of us have
Um,
seen
but one day, I promise you
it.
that. I promise you that we will. That we will. Um, Yeah, I'm trying to think. What else is there to say about
So,
Seven before we
so
move
one
on?
thing I will say about Se7en is,
Mm,
and this is the same with a lot of his films, definitely Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, definitely Fight Club,
mm,
definitely Se7en, is his title sequences are brilliant, like, especially
yeah,
with Mindhunter as well. Mindhunter's the same. So
yeah,
the title sequences, the songs he uses in those titles are, just brilliant. All those little sort of uncomfortable snippets that you see, all that wonderful little things that sort of like flash in,
yes, yes,
that gives you an inkling of what's to come. It sets the tone perfectly.
yes,
And I think, all of, maybe not Gun Girl as much, but definitely the 3 we're talking about today, and definitely Mindhunter. They
yes.
all they all do that beautifully.
They do. I think between the three of them, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is my favorite title sequence. Um, done. Yeah. It puts. It's funny because it has Daniel Craig in it, who's Bond, and it's very Bondy,
Oh,
Bond-esque.
yeah, I don't see him as Bondy in that, I must
No, no,
admit.
I don't see Craig as Bond, but it's the having the guy who is James Bond with it with the opening credits. The opening credits are very James Bond-esque.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, but he's not acting like Bond in that movie. But so is that. But yeah, I do love the opening credits for Girls Dragon Tattoo.
Mm.
Those are wonderfully done, wonderfully done. And the ones for Fight Club, so remind me. And this, well, I guess, yeah, this came out first, but they very much reminded me of the first X-Men movie. Um, the very first X-Men movie, the credits, the opening credits are more or less the same because they're sort of, the way that the opening credits for Fight Club is sort of going through, I don't know, like your mind, and because it's kind of like
Oh, what's
DNA
it
sort of
like?
looking
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah, yeah, that's right, yeah, I remember.
synapses and stuff like
Mm.
that. I think, with the way the text are kind of coming on the screen a bit shaky and then flashing out. If you go and watch the opening credits for the first X-Men movie, there's some serious inspiration going on. X-Men lifted it a little bit for sure.
It's a
Um,
homage. It's a
it's an
homage.
homage. Yes,
Homage,
yes.
homage.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's chat Fight Club. Let's chat Fight Club. Um, what are your thoughts on Fight Club?
So, I didn't watch this for years because I thought it was a film about soap, which I guess it sort of is. But I couldn't work out what it was actually about. And then when I did watch it, I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Not about soap.
Fun
Uh,
fact: even when the film was originally coming out, the studio Fox was nervous about it, and so they sold it, and the marketing, they sold it on the fighting and on this underground boxing club, group, um which therefore when people went to go see it, they were like, wait a minute, this is really not the movie you advertised, because they really sold it on Brad Pitt and the fighting, but it's because they were afraid. There's a lot of back and forth on this movie where there were scenes and bits of dialogue where the people in charge were like, can you not do this? And he's like, no. Fincher's like, no, I'm gonna do it. So
Yeah,
deal
let's
with
do
it.
that.
Um,
Sorry, I'm just messaging my, husband to tell him to take the dog out for a wee.
that is okay. I can't remember what there's a line in the film. Oh yes, it's the line where Marla says that, when she's talking about after having slept with Tyler,
Oh, yeah,
um,
yeah.
she hasn't been screwed like that since, I think, like
Oh, grade school.
grade school. And what was really funny is, yeah, that line, there was another line in it before that was more risque, and or not more risque, but quite risque. And
What was it?
Fox was like, "Oh, I knew you were gonna ask because now it slipped out of
Yeah, now I wanna know what the line
now it
was.
slipped out of my brain." Let me find it. I can find it.
Because in the
Um,
UK, nobody knows what grade school is. What's grade school?
Grade schools is what age are you when you're in grade school? I think you're like a child. Um, I mean, you're obviously a child
I
because
mean,
you're.
we got the gist. We understood what it was, so.
It's, yeah, it's sort of 4th, 5th, 6th grade, so you're 9, 10, 11.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty gross. Okay, hang on. Oh yeah, that was it. Yes, here it is. So yeah, the original line is that Marla says, after once during the pillow talk scene, Marla says, this is so inappropriate. He says, she says, I want to have your abortion.
Oh, I've heard that before,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's a really intense line. So then as the story goes, Fox was like, "No, can you please change that?" David Fincher said he would on the provision that the new line could not be cut. And then he put this line that I haven't been effed since grade school. And then Fox were like, "No, you can't do that." And he was like, "Hey, you signed the deal. You said the new line couldn't be cut, so this is what you got." And there's a lot of instances like that throughout this film where Fox are pushing back at things, and Fincher pushed back and got his way. And I think probably for the better, because I don't know about you, but like this isn't a movie about good people or remotely good people, you know. And I think that kind of works to its benefit in some way. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm just thinking about what you said about whether they're good people or not. Um, yeah, I mean, possibly not. Are they good people?
I can't think of any redeeming qualities.
Well, that's what I'm trying to think about. Uh, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you could argue that the narrator is sort of like he is well, okay, yeah, okay. I can answer this. So you could
Right.
argue the narrator is a good person because when he finds out what Tyler is trying to do, he does
Yeah.
try to stop it. So he does have morality, he does have a sense of right and wrong. And when Robert Paulson dies, when Meatloaf dies,
Mhm.
he's repulsed by that and the fact that that he has no name. And so I think the narrator, as we're shown as Edward Norton, I think he does have a good side and a right and a wrong, but obviously deep down he doesn't, as we find out.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about Fight Club is I think this is the best twist, or one of the best twists in a film,
Mhm.
that if you don't know it, there's so once you know it, there's clues all the way through. From the first line, and I wrote it down. In the first
Oh,
line, he says, "I know this because Tyler knows this."
yes, yeah.
And you just think,
Well, there you go. Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. And there's loads of, and as soon as you know it, you realize that Tyler and Edward Norton are never in the same room together when Marla's around. And all that, which is very cleverly done. And I think it's one of
Yeah.
the best twists that you get in a film or in a book. That's and it's so wonderfully done, especially the scene when he's having a fight with Tyler at the end, and he's essentially throwing himself down the stairs, and this
Yeah.
very slapstick sort of comical element. But then you've seen him do that already
Yes.
in the guy's office, so
Yeah.
it's not far-fetched because he's done it before.
Yes.
And that, yeah, I just think it's one of the best twists. And somehow I watched the
Mhm.
film not knowing what the twist was, and then I was like, "You're fucking kidding
Yeah, I
me."
don't think I knew either when I first watched it. Yeah, it's such a long time ago that I can't really remember, but
Yeah,
it is a good twist. Rewatching it this last time, there were also in terms the other thing is quite interesting about this. I want to get back to the twist, but the other thing, but earlier we were saying about kind of that first line, there's also uh, flashes of Tyler throughout the movie, if you ever noticed. So in the way that Tyler mentioned in the scene where they say that Tyler works at a movie, and he works at the cinema, he's a projectionist,
yes,
and he splices in pornographic images in the movies. Um, you will notice if you go through and watch the film, you will see bits where Tyler flashes up on the screen.
Oh, right. Yeah. Shots of him. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're so quick and they're like kind of muddied into the into the frame. But you see those
Maybe
little.
at the end, there's a flash of a cock, I think.
There is the very end. There is
Yeah.
the very end. So yes, and the film sort of sets up straight away this sort of surreal. You don't, what is reality? What is, am I dreaming? Am I not dreaming? What is going on? I'm so tired. What am I seeing? The film starts off, I think, brilliantly establishing that stuff. But what I was going to say about the twist is, what do you think about some of those scenes where Edward Norton's the narrator is in the background and he's watching scenes happen? So, for example, when they pull the cop guy into the bathroom and he's the one who locks the door, but also Brad Pitt's Tyler is the person dragging the cop through the bathroom.
I'm trying to remember the cop in the bathroom.
It's where they threatened to chop his balls off with a knife because he's
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, you got the same when they threatened the guy outside the back of the the corner shop as well. Do you think they've cheated a bit there?
Yeah. And the driving. Tyler shouldn't have drove.
Yeah, I did think that. I did think, why is he driving? Because that doesn't work. Yeah. I mean, he has the car accident, but yeah, I mean, they kind of get away with it. But yeah, I did think when he was driving, I thought that's cheating.
Yeah. And it's again, this is not to say this is a bad movie. This is a great film and it's well worth watching over and over and over. What?
Isn't there someone in the back when he's driving?
There's two people in the back, yes. There's also two of the cronies are in the back. So it's like, wait a minute. So who's driving?
Yeah, so you can kind of get away with it if it's just the two of them in the car.
Yeah.
Because you could imagine that he's thinking, oh, Tyler's.
Yeah. Well, I think the way we're meant to see it, I think, and this is the way to kind of work around it, and the intention, I suppose, is that Edward Norton is in the driver's seat. He is the one driving. But he's talking to himself and he sees the narrator self in that other chair. But you know what I mean? So like,
yeah, so he can be one or the other at any time.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how you can kind of get away with it. But if you're going for that sort of Sixth Sense twist, a little bit more care and attention to some of those details, I think, would have made the impact even more outstanding, I think.
Yes, yeah, because it is essentially the same twist as Sixth Sense.
Yes.
That somebody's not there or dead, or they're not being seen.
Yes.
But yeah, which I think is something that's very hard to do now because you're always looking for it. I often think, I mean, we watched a rom-com, so a completely different genre, obviously, but what's it called? Last Christmas.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Have you not seen the rom-com Last Christmas?
That's why I'm saying I'm sorry. I have seen it.
Oh, you have seen it? Oh, yeah. But in the first 10 minutes of that, I went, he's dead. And my husband was like, how do you know that? I was like, just is. He's dead.
He's dead.
He's dead. And then the sort of next 5 minutes, I was like, and he got the heart. So, or like somebody got his heart. Like it was sort of like, and then I was like, look, no one is talking to him but her. No one is, and that's the giveaway, I think, when no one is talking to you. And there's scenes where there's other people, but no one is still talking to him or acknowledging him. Then it's it's very hard to do.
They are. You got to be really careful with that kind of stuff. Otherwise, it is quite glaring. Thematically, this film was quite interesting to think about its themes in the year 2023.
We're on to themes now.
Yeah. What did you think about the film on a thematic level? About you go first, and then I'll
share. Well, what's the theme in Seven?
Well, the theme is sins are bad.
Sins are bad. Morality. Morality and
Well,
sympathy.
it is. I think with Seven, I think it is all about it's about trying to, I think, not lose yourself in the kind of the wasteland
Mhm.
of this sort of this terrible corrupt city, and you know the fact that as hard as you try, bad shit just still happens,
It happens.
and it's how you react to that. um so I think it's all sort of wrapped up in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think what the rebellion, what the theme of Fight Club is, and it's sort of combination between sort of rebellion and I guess finding yourself,
Mm,
sort of working out your place in the world. I don't know. It's such a bizarre film. It's very hard
it is.
um, to sort of pinpoint. Sort of I don't know. I'm just trying to think of so similar. Yeah, I don't know. It's sort of tricky. I'm just trying to think of the themes in the books that I use, and sort of
Yeah.
I always you do always find yourself coming back to the same themes. I don't know why, but often,
Yeah.
often I come back to sort of revenge and redemption.
Yeah.
Um, and sort of the 20, I went a bit off topic and went sort of down the sort of duality line in terms of personality, how we can be one person and another person and still, still be true to yourself. Who are you?
Yeah.
But you can be, in Adam's case, he's not a very nice guy, but he still does have that sort of sense of right and wrong and how he's trying
Yeah.
to sort of save himself in the book. So I don't know, there's a bit of that. Anyway, you go. You've obviously given it way more thought than I have.
Well, it just dawned on me a little bit when I was on this most recent rewatch, and it wasn't something I would have thought about maybe a year, 3, 4 years ago. Um, but there is this real sense of there's definitely a question of masculinity. What does it mean to be a guy? I think going on throughout this whole movie, because there's lines in this about how, oh well, we were all raised by women, right?
They're not
And
snowflakes. Talks about the snowflakes, doesn't it?
yeah, you're not a snowflake, but it's funny because it's like this is years before the term snowflake is
Yeah.
is is used in the way it is now. You're not special, you're not a pretty little snowflake, all that it's
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But and also the film opens up with the narrator being in the testicular cancer support group, where there's all these men who feel like they aren't men anymore because they don't got their balls. And there's he's crying, there's the guy, he's his face is crushed into the guy with the big
Man tits.
boobs, bitch tits, I think is what
Tits,
he
tits,
calls
that's
it.
it. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But what conclusion do you think they come to in terms of what is masculinity?
Well, this is what's interesting to me, is this. I don't know if they actually come to a conclusion, but the theme for me is that this is a film about lost. Bless you.
All right.
This all right. This to me is like, this is a film about lost men, um, desperately trying to find their place in a world that they feel has abandoned them, I think, because they're like, oh, we're the people who keep you safe. We're the people, we're the grunt workers. We are the blue collar people who keep this world safe, right, and keep it going, right.
Mm.
um and this is them trying to fight back and take control, but they're doing it in such a.
Pathetic way?
Yeah, 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 and the whole sort of plan, and the way that Tyler is developing all of these cells, these terrorist cells all over the country, um really seriously reminded me of like the January 6th stuff, and the way kind of on a political level, the way people like Trump are able to manipulate people into thinking a certain way, and instigating attacks and rebellion when there shouldn't be. So this to me was just a film totally about completely lost and directionless men who are blaming other things for their problems, blaming, oh well, we were raised by women, oh well, we're not respected at our jobs, da 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 da. Just totally lost people. And what do you do when you're that disillusioned and you're that easy, you're just putty to be manipulated,
Yeah, because he is sort of he does spend his entire film sort of raging against who he is or who he's perceived to be, or
Yeah.
whilst Marla, the opposite. I mean, she's a fairly despicable character in that, she's also going to these help groups, she's stealing Meals on Wheels, she's doing all sorts of things. But on the other hand, she's not raging about that. She's
No.
just like, well,
No.
this is who I am. If I'm going to fuck Brad Pitt, then, job's a good one. I mean, she doesn't
Yeah.
sort of, he tells her to leave and, she still comes back. So she's fairly clear on who she is.
Yes.
But yet he's, starting these ridiculous fight clubs and basements and achieving, you kind of question, well, what is he actually achieving?
Yeah.
It's all a little silly in a way.
Yes.
Kind of pointless.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, they don't really, they're not going to achieve their goals. I mean, they might blow up those buildings, but blowing up those buildings won't change anything. It's
No.
You're not creating a new world by doing that. Which again, I think watching this post January 6th, I'm like, wow, this is just too much. Like it's too real. It's too real. This absurd film is too real now. And I'm like, what is the world we live in?
No, I mean, it is an interesting film. When you think when the book was written, that was even sooner than when, I don't know what, I've got it somewhere.
Yeah, I think it was 96 when it was written or something like that.
God knows, somewhere behind me on my shelf will be Fight Club. But yeah, I mean, the other thing that is in my head is worth mentioning about Fight Club is it has one of the best ending scenes. I mean, it's a scene with Norton and Marla standing as the buildings collapse with the pixies in the background with this wonderful blue. I mean, it's just beautiful, I think. And the cinematography is fantastic in Fight Club. These sort of images of, Brad Pitt with the cigarette in his mouth with all the abs out and the pinnacle of masculinity, isn't he, at that point? It's like, he's a man.
Yeah.
And then it's just, I just think some cinematography.
Yeah.
Whatever you said. It's fantastic in both Fight Club and Se7en as well.
They absolutely are. Yeah, I agree. And actually, to your point, there is that line where Brad Pitt's Tyler says, I'm the version of you that you want to be. Which again,
another massive giveaway.
Say again.
Which is another massive giveaway that you miss.
Yeah, and you it kind of leans back into that. This is all fantasy. You think you are this big badass. You think that you are this tough man, but actually you're a fucking psychopath. Bifford the Hobbit in the chat says that Fight Club did very poorly in the box office. Well, I think we kind of touched on that. I think part of that is to do with Fox didn't know how to market this particular movie. Fincher had ideas, and they cut his ideas. He wanted more sort of I think sort of he wanted more sort of underground kind of looking ads that would, I guess, feed into the underground sellness of what Tyler was doing. But
it has so many different parts as well, because if you think Se7en is quite straightforward, it has all the different murders, then it has Kevin Spacey comes forward, then it has, and that's it. It's quite linear in that way. I think Fight Club jumps around all over the place, because you start off with obviously Edward Norton going to these help groups, and then that transitions to the actual Fight Club stuff, and then
Yeah.
that transitions to, you know, all the
Predictability.
terrorists. So it's very bizarre in that way. It sort of leaps and jumps and
Totally. Yeah, because actually it says that the film was criticized because, like I said earlier, it gave the impression that it was all about guys just beating each other up. And so the marketing didn't lean into the satire, didn't lean into the comedy elements or anything like that. And basically it marketed to the wrong audience. So in terms of it being a box office, uh, dud, that's why. If your studio, if they don't really know what they're doing or they're afraid, you're gonna get, you're gonna get that. You're gonna get that. Um, any other final comments on Fight Club, and then we can move on to the girl with the dragon tattoo.
No, I don't think so. I mean, if I had the time, I would have read the book again, but I didn't quite. But
I mean,
no,
that's
I think it is a fantastic film. I just love it for the ending. I just love it for him shooting his face off, and
yes.
Marla comes in raging, and then she goes, "Oh my God, your face!" Like,
I love that.
it's
That's good.
fantastic that she's actually like, "Oh my God," and he kind of says, "You met me at a very strange time in my life," and I think it's just such a wonderful ending, I think. But
Yeah, it is, and I mean the absurdity of it all is great, and you're sort of like, what the hell happened to them after this moment? Like, did he get away with it?
yeah. Well,
Don't know.
yeah, we don't know, do we?
Who
But
knows? But interestingly enough, Chuck, the guy who wrote the book, Chuck
yeah.
something or the other. I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce his name
Yeah, I can't
because,
pronounce it either.
we'll Palaluk. We'll call it Palanuk. Palaluk. Whatever.
I'm not
Whatever.
even gonna try.
Whatever. I'm trying to do right by the guy and try and say his name. So you're not listening to this, Chuck, but if you are, I'm sorry. Interestingly enough, when he was writing the book, it was about halfway through or something like that he then decided to make Tyler and the narrator the same person. He was actually writing them as different people.
Yeah.
And until later in the book. And I sort of wonder, I would need to go back to the book, if that's partly why some of these scenes in the film can play that way, because maybe they're played like that in the in the book as well. Not sure, but
It doesn't surprise me in terms of the writing process because I've done it like myself. I got to the end of the Echo Man and then realized who the killer was, and then had to like go back and rewrite the entire book to fit the twist at the end. So yeah, I can
yeah.
see that he was writing it and he suddenly had a oh shit moment.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Girl with a dragon tattoo. Biffer says in the chat, the Girl with a Dragon Tattoo remake was better than the original. Do you have any
Which is
thoughts on that?
the remake?
You not know? There
Well,
was
the Swedish one and
yes,
it's an
yes,
American one, which is
yes.
the
Yeah.
American
So the
one.
Swedish one is the first one, and then the American one is considered the remake.
I don't think I've seen the Swedish one. I
Yeah,
think I've only seen the remake then.
I saw the first one a long time ago, so I've seen the Fincher version more several times, whereas I've only seen the Swedish version once. I think there's good things about both of them. They're worth watching. There's also a part of me that wishes they just filmed the Swedish version in Swedish and in English, because it's the whole trilogy. But and it drives me nuts to this day that we never got the whole trilogy.
No.
It just drives me nuts. But yeah, Girl with Dragon Tattoo. Why'd you pick this one?
I think again it's just another very, very good film. And a very good make of the book as well, because again, it's quite faithful to the book, I think.
Yeah.
Not having read the book for quite a few years, but I think again from the beginning you're quite clear on who the characters are, and it gets straight to the the issue at hand, which is Daniel Craig's character Mikhail has been like disgraced essentially, and then
Yeah.
that disgrace is his catalyst to go and investigate this crime. And he obviously Christopher Plummer obviously offers him this this tempting tidbit that's gonna that's going to make him want to do it. So it's sort of true to his character that he drops everything and goes there. As in good old plotting method. And then you've got Elizabeth. But what's interesting about it is I think those two characters don't meet until very late in the film. So she's doing a lot by herself. He's doing a lot by himself.
Yeah.
And it's strangely late that they meet.
Yeah.
But I just think it's a very harrowing film in places, but again, very well done. And it's partly down to the book, isn't it, and how well the book's written, but it resolves in such a wonderful way. But then same with Fight Club, same with Se7en, and with this, it has a very poignant ending for Elizabeth, in that she takes this jacket and he's off with Robin Wright again. So it doesn't end well for our heroes. None of these end well for our heroes.
No, they don't. I always found that quite. Yeah, I think it's probably partly why I wanted them to do the other films. Like, you've left this ending here. It's like you've set up things need to happen, right? With their relationship with Solander and Mikkel, and it's just it's frustratingly squandered. I think, but
my friend pointed out last night that makes it even more poignant that you don't see the resolution. That's how it's left, because there is no 2 and 3.
If there were no books, if there's no second and third book, I would say that's fine. But because there's 2 other books, and because in Sweden they did the whole trilogy, I'm just like, why did you not finish this? I don't.
Because it didn't make enough money, I guess, or he went off and became Bond, and he didn't have the time. It's probably something very boring and commercial.
This film came out in 2011, which would have been the year before Skyfall came out. And Skyfall was the last ditch effort to revive Daniel Craig's Bond.
So he did this in between Bonds.
Yeah. So Quantum of Solace came out in 2009, tanked miserably.
That's because it's crap.
It is. It's crap, but it's crap because they didn't have a script when they started. A completed script when they started filming, and then the writer's strike happened while this was going on, and so they as in Daniel Craig and people on set were literally trying to make up the story as they went along,
which shows.
It did. It's sad because like it could have been a good film, but
anyway, to talk about Bond.
No, but it seriously jeopardized the franchise, and I think that's probably why he was even able to go and make this particular film with the thinking that, oh, Girl Dragon Tattoo, this will probably give me three films. That would be great.
Yeah.
But then Skyfall, I'm assuming Skyfall's enormous success is what rocked the boat on this, because he was locked into Bond for the next I don't know 5 or 6 more years, I guess. No, 10 years, because the last one just came out last year, so 10 more years of Bond. What do you make of the character of Lisbeth Salander?
I mean, she's a bit of a cliche now. I think it's hard to write a character like her without being accused of like, I mean, I've been in the middle of writing something at the moment, and the character that I have is female, a little bit, I mean, arguably on the autistic spectrum, so not great with emotions, and also has a very sort of relaxed attitude towards sex. So in my head, I'm thinking, are you making this person too much like Salinger? Or is that just, why can't a woman be like that? So I mean, I do like it. She was the first of her type, I think, and she was so radical in how she is. But she's, I think there's some wonderful bits between her and Mikkel when he's using the computer later, and she's kind of like sat next to him, just like dying with frustration. These wonderful bits where she's obviously 4 steps ahead of everyone, and then you see how clever she is at the end when she does the thing. But I think she's a wonderful creation, and she works kind of quite well with him, with his sort of slightly bumbling, slightly old and his cardigans and his woolly pulleys and his glasses hanging off one ear, and you know.
Yes, I've never understood how he did that. I've never actually tried, but I'm like, if I were to do that, my glasses are gonna fall, and I'm like nervous if my.
There you go.
Yeah, I guess that was just
They're
ridiculous.
not very secure, though. Has to be
No,
said.
exactly. It's like if these fall, they're gonna break, and that's gonna be just a lot of money.
No, but he does it so. Sorry, I'm going off on a massive tangent here, but he does it so well. It's such an attractive,
It's
weird quirk
it's true.
that makes him like astonishingly attractive in this film. And his
Uh,
woolly pulleys, and yeah. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent,
no,
but
that's fine. Tangents are good. Do you think Daniel Craig was miscast in this film?
he wasn't as I imagined.
No.
I must admit, she
The guy in the
was.
Swedish version is probably more what you're look it up. He's actually I can look it up and I can share the screen, and so that people can see. Swedish girl with dragon tattoo. Oh, there we go.
I just keep on getting the 2011 one.
It's all
Love
right.
it.
Got it. Okay, let me share the screen. Share screen. I want the window. I want that. There we go. There he is.
Okay. He's got slightly wonky eyes in that. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Wonky, goofy looking guy.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that. Maybe I have seen this. It's not for a while. Yeah, he's probably a little bit. I think Daniel Craig's probably a little bit too attractive
Yeah.
in it, but I have no objection to that.
I guess most people.
I have
probably
no
don't.
objection to that. So it's fine. It makes it more watchable for me. So yeah.
That works.
Okay,
That
here's a
works. That
question for
works.
you. The scene, obviously, where Elizabeth is raped with the guy, and her revenge on him. Do you think that's necessary?
Yes. Necessary. Sure. Why not? It's I'm cool with it because we get the revenge. This is an interesting question actually, because if we don't get the revenge, if we don't have the revenge, then it just feels violent and gratuitous and just little ick. But the fact that we see her dominate and get her revenge on him is quite satisfying, I think.
I think, yeah. I think it says something about her character as well. It gives you an idea of
Yeah.
who she is and the lengths that she will go to.
Yeah.
Because they talk about it a bit, like, early on, and they have a few conversations about it,
Yeah.
about, what happened in her past and things like that, but I think that those couple of scenes show, A, how ruthless she is, and
Yeah.
B, how the lengths she will go to, so that when you get
Yeah.
to the end,
Yeah.
when she obviously attacks the dude with a golf club or whatever and goes after him and says, "Do you give me permission to kill him?" You
Yes.
just believe that actually this woman could and would.
Yeah. I agree. I think you're right. It sets up a lot about what we need to know about her, and her skill, and because it's this is always the tricky thing when you have, not always, but a lot of times this can be a tricky thing when you have a lady protagonist, right? I love Sarah Pretsky's V.I. Warsarsky books. They're PI novels set in the States. And when you think of hard-boiled detectives like Raymond Chandler, it's always the big tough guy who can always get the shit beat out of him and can keep on going. But in Sarah Pretsky's books, she makes a point of being like, to kind of she rejigs the hard-boiled genre to reflect feminine concerns, like she's not happy walking down a dark alley. She knows that a dude twice her size could easily kill her. She, and so that's what's quite I like about Elizabeth is that she is, she's kind of from that same sort of mold, and we see her, exact her revenge on someone who is many, many times her size,
Mm.
and done so in a way that is, I guess in a way that is believable, and I think I don't want to say right. Right's not the correct word to use, but it's like, yeah, that she used her skill set to to get her revenge on this guy, and absolutely nailed it.
Mm.
And I think that was, yeah, so I like how she's done that, but the road to her revenge is quite horrific, because it happens multiple times. It's I think it's twice that she is assaulted by that guy.
Mm.
And those scenes they're not for the faint of heart. I think I cringe every time, anytime I rewatch the movie. It's definitely hard to get through those moments. But question for you: we have these moments where, we see these negative sex scenes. Then there's the moment with her and Craig. They have their sexy scene. Now, what's interesting is that in terms of maybe feminine exploitation, we see she shows everything, right? But with Daniel Craig, he's not, we basically just get torso, chest, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's sort of all. So it's interesting to me that in the safe, what's the safe sex scene, that's still sort of on a cinematic level, that's still sort of exploiting the actress, the character, whereas it's not of, the guy doesn't really get exploited on that same sort of level. And
Mm.
I wonder if the film missed a trick on that. I wonder if the film should have had a more tame romantic scene. Like, they can still have sex, I don't give a shit about that, but did we need to see
See her, all of
see
her.
yeah, because this was meant to be more of a safe environment, as opposed to these others where we've seen her naked and it's just brutal and you just feel awkward and terrible. Would it have been better if there was, if less is more approach with that particular scene, because they do, like, they zoom in on her, every bit of her,
Yeah.
in those moments. What do you think? Am I off the mark?
No, I mean, I think that they could have achieved what they wanted to achieve in those scenes without seeing every bit of her. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, this is what you get in films
True.
nowadays. You
Yeah.
get, and we're moving slightly. I think we are moving away from it now. But the male viewer does demand a certain level of
Mm,
nudity in an 18 film, and
yeah.
you can't you sorry.
It's all right.
You can't do it the other way without causing what's the word? Without causing a sorry, I'm gonna cough again.
It's all right.
Without causing, I guess, focus on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Like Gone Girl. Remember? Everyone talked about the side dick.
whose side dick?
Ben Affleck's and Gone Girl.
I was not paying attention, clearly. But anyway, no, I mean, I'm more thinking if there was a film with Chris Pine who did a full frontal.
Okay.
And I can't remember what the film is, but because it was dire, it was some historical thing.
Right.
But there was a lot of fuss about, you see his dick, and it's sort of like it's such a momentous occasion in inverted commas that it gets so much focus and so much airplay
Yeah.
that it's sort of not worth doing unless you are writing a film that requires to see it. But
Yeah.
I think you're right. I don't think you need to see as much of her
No. No.
as you do,
No.
and yeah, it is slightly. Yeah, it is slightly gratuitous. I will accept the rape scene because it's so defining of her character,
Yes.
and you
Yeah.
sort of need that. for the end, and
Yeah.
everything that happens, and you sort of see her make the mistake, if you see what I mean, because
Yeah.
she obviously she goes in with the camera, she thinks she's just gonna go giving him another blowjob.
That's
She's
yeah.
not
Right.
expecting what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
And obviously that was, something, a learning, I don't know how you ever define it, but yes, your point is right. You probably don't need to see as much of her as you do in that particular
No.
sex scene.
No,
Uh,
I don't think so. We'll sort of wrap up here in a second, but I'm also curious. What are your thoughts on the ending? Because um once certain bits kind of get resolved with the family, there is this sort of the last like 20 minutes are a bit weird. I think.
Or when she's going off to get the money.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it goes to your point about they didn't make the other films, because I think in the other films
Mm,
she needs the money more. So she's independently wealthy, isn't she? In the other,
yeah.
and again, she doesn't need to be independently wealthy because she's making perfectly good money all by herself. So I guess
Yeah.
you don't need that. I mean, it's the ultimate revenge on the guy that did over McHale, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
what she's doing. She's sort of showing her love for him in a
Yeah.
slightly weird way.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think I mean, I guess I don't mind it, but I sort of wonder, did we, because the film is long, it's 2 hours and 20 some odd minutes.
yeah,
Um, sh- do you think that maybe in terms of on an editing point of view, um, if certain bits had been shortened to allow that sort of end bit a bit more time to breathe? 'Cause it feels like it speeds through. She's suddenly here,
yeah.
she's suddenly there, disguises guys, da, 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 and you're like, "What's going on?" It's just it's the only bit of the film that jars me. It's that globe-trotting bit
It's
that
too
I'm
quick.
yeah, that
Yeah,
it's too quick.
it didn't bother me. What I did like about it is the way that, she asks him for money and he just gives it to her. Like,
Yeah,
he doesn't refuse. He just says,
yeah,
"Yeah, yeah, you can have it."
yeah,
Um, and I quite like that moment between them. I mean, it didn't bother me because it is relevant to the plot that, he does get given this shit bit of information that he can't use for the
yeah.
guy, and then she obviously, "No, maybe you don't need it. Maybe you don't need it at all. Cut the whole thing."
Mm. It's weird because in terms of the story, what we're seeing, so much focus is on the mystery of the family.
Mm,
And there's only like tidbits of his fall from grace within his journalistic career. So I'm wondering, like, maybe they need, had they enhanced those some of that stuff, in the script early on, would that stuff landed a little bit more, maybe some tightening of different scenes, and trimming of other bits to sort of balance it out, or I mean, you just cut it off and leave it for the sequel.
yeah, I
Explain
mean, I was just
explain it.
thinking it in terms of a book. If I was writing it in terms of a book, you'd just cut it.
Mm,
You'd cut the whole thing. You wouldn't include it
no.
because you don't, as you say, you don't really need it, because the nasty guy that did Open McHale has had his revenge already
Yeah.
because she gave him that information.
Yeah.
Although he does sort of say, "Oh, he's gonna get away with it. He's gonna, not go to prison," that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think you would just cut it.
Yeah.
If you were writing it as a book, I could well see my editor going, "Why do you need
Yeah.
this? Cut it."
'Cause Larson's books are huge. They're not short.
No.
So, there's more time to devote to that, which I guess makes it easier. Um, but I think for the film, I would have cut it. I think for the film, that last 20 minutes, I would have trimmed and just had her go do the jacket thing
Yeah.
and end on that, because that's such a wonderful, sad moment to end
Yeah,
to
it's
end
so
that on, I think.
yeah, it is so poignant. But yeah, it's a good film. I'm just thinking what else you'd cut if you had the choice. I mean, you probably would cut the rape scene. Um, that is something that I think as a writer now you do have to be very careful of in terms of
Mm,
just, raping women for the hell of it, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Why are we including this? But
Yeah. Yeah. It's I guess it depends on how much. Yeah, that's always a tricky thing. I think that's a yeah, case by case, book by book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
easier to do in inverted commas, easier to do in a book than in a film, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think so, definitely. Any other final words on The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?
No, not really. I mean, it's an interesting film because you don't expect it. You don't expect the ending, and in a way, you sort of don't expect it to be such a good detective film. I think it's a
Yeah.
good example of how you can do the sort of journalist solving a mystery genre and get it right. I think get it quite nice and
Yeah.
quite neat.
My last question actually is do you think the ending where Craig is locked up in the cellar, do you think that goes a little bit too James Bondy?
It does. Yeah. It's a bit too, yeah, I don't know the word for it, but it does jar slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
It
agree
it
with that.
that was the same thing. I was like, I love this. If this was a James, like, 'cause it's very reminiscent of Sky Casino Royale, where James Bond is captured by the chief, stripped down and is beaten up,
Yeah.
by the main villain. It's like it's kind of the same thing, you know. But yeah, it's and I guess this is the other problem is that, and I don't know how many people know this, but obviously these books were published after Stig Larsson died.
Mm.
So in terms of editing, he never got the chance to like sit with an editor and say, oh, let's maybe trim, let's change it, and rejig some of this stuff. So it's a very interesting example both of a book and a film where it didn't published after he died. So there's a whole bunch of publishing steps that the author never got to engage in, and you sort of wonder what would he have
What would
changed.
he yeah, what would
Yeah,
he have amended? Would he have taken that final scene out if his editor had said, "I think maybe you
yeah.
needed to trim it a bit"? Would he have said, "Okay, yeah, fair play, I'll cut it"?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Very fascinating though. Fascinating. Cool. Well, I think we've covered all three of these films.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I rewatched, Zodiac as well, just out of interest, because that's another one of his, which is great. But we've waffled. I'm sure we've waffled on long enough. Uh,
Yeah,
and Zodiac
Zodiac
is
could be its own episode. I love
yeah.
Zodiac. Yeah, God, that's a good one. I remember one quick story about it. The first time I watched it, I was house sitting for friends when I was living up in Manchester, and it was Christmas holidays. They were away in the States. I was staying and house sitting. One night, all the lights are off. I'm watching
Ooh.
this movie, and it's freaking me the shit out. And it's late at night. I'm not expecting anyone, and all of a sudden, I hear someone banging on the door, and I'm like, "Who the hell is here?" I'm not expecting anyone. No one's texted me. No, very few people even know that I'm here. What is this? And so I like slowly crept to the door, and it was the neighbor returning a chair. And I was like, "You scared the shit out of me, dude." I was like, "I'm sitting here watching Zodiac, and yeah, I watched the rest of the film with lights on."
I didn't watch Zodiac until after, because I was doing all the research for, Echo Man, and
Mm,
Zodiac, one of the killers I include in it, just because it gave me the chance to, like, do a cipher and all that sort of fun stuff.
yeah.
Um, so I'd read the book and then I watched the film, but, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I think that's one of the best not adaptations, but best
True crime
true
sort of.
crime
Mm.
films. I love that. That might be peak Fincher for me. I think that is peak, and then the things after sort of on a
Oh,
scale sort of
Mindhunter,
go up
you
and
got
down a bit.
Mindhunter. I love Mindhunter.
The Netflix show, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
was good, but sadly got canceled because
Oh, I
Netflix is
know. What,
stupid.
it got two seasons, didn't it? And then got cancelled.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I
ridiculous.
would always define like the Echo Man is sort of Mindhunter meets Se7en. It's sort of that's my
Yeah,
comp. When you have to give a comp, that was what I was using.
yeah. No, that
Very
was
sad.
good. That show got shortchanged. That was disappointing.
Yeah,
That was disappointing.
it was.
Um, so we'll wrap up now. Where can people find you on the Tinternet?
On the internet, I am Sam Holland Books on everything. So my website is www.samhollandbooks.com. And then on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Although be patient on Facebook because I don't go on it much. So,
No.
like,
Facebook is a dead zone.
oh yeah, I don't. It's so hard to use and awful. But yeah, so I will say Sam Holland Books, and then the 20 is out May.
Yes.
So 2nd of May in the States and 11th of May in UK.
Yes, and there are links to your Amazon page in the description below, so
Oh,
anyone who's watching can go down there and click on that and go buy some books.
yeah,
And if you're listening on Spotify, the link will be there as well.
cool. But yeah,
Um,
do get in touch. I love to, especially sort of read-alongs are quite fun when people contact me when they're sort of like halfway through and how they're feeling and who they think it's going to be. That's always
yes,
quite
yes.
entertaining.
And I think if you're if you're a fan of these films that we've talked about, you'll definitely see you'll feel that sort of the homaging,
Homaging, even from like Echo Man copying the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday things. I was like, oh my god, you even did that. It's just so
but so many people do that in their books right now.
well, that's all right.
So you won't get picked up on copying Se7en just from that. So that's absolutely but they're very good books, very atmospheric. If you like these films, you're gonna like these books, I think. So go pick up the Echo Man and pre-order the 20. You won't be disappointed. But yeah, anyway, I will be back tomorrow night because me and Neil Vag are going to do a review of Star Trek Picard because Star Trek Picard just finished. And we gotta nerd out and talk Star Trek. So I'll actually be back tomorrow night for anyone who wants to tune in for that. But otherwise, I will. Yeah, we'll go for now and chat to see you all later.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pulling a Mr. Mackey, I'm like, okay, see you later. Okay. If you've ever watched South Park, that's a South Park. It's a South Park.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mr. Mackey,
Dim and distant memory. Dim and distant memory.
That's right. All right, everyone. We will see you later. Thanks for tuning in. Go follow Sam on Twitter and go buy her books. And see you later.
Thank you.